Episode 3 of Why North Borneo Could Never Attain Real Independence in 1963 is part of a series of 3 episodes produced in 2024. Many of you have asked me this question in the aftermath of episodes 1 and episodes 2. Who was to blame ultimately for North Borneo never attaining real independence in 1963? And so my answer is you need to take everything into context as to why decisions were made that ultimately led to the merger to form Malaysia. Now, if you listen to episodes 1 and 2, I explain the reasons why North Borneo had to merge to form Malaysia. Now, the views shared in this video are based on key diplomatic and government documents, published statements by elder statesmen directly involved with the merger. This episode is an independent production presented to ensure that there has been no political influence, no influence by any institution. And I think it's crucial for you, in the end, after listening to all the evidence that I will be presenting to you, for you to make your own judgment as to this question: who was to blame for North Borneo not attaining independence and self-rule in 1963, intent on displaying
I feel, sir, that the time has come when someone should stand up and say something about a matter of which there has been considerable comment in the country of late, and that is our political development. Let me make it clear that nothing is further from my mind than the wish to create or fester, at this stage of the country's development, any ideas of Merdeka. This country is very young. It will take some time for the people of the country to realize the responsibilities they have as citizens of it, and until they have been educated to the extent of understanding the true meaning of the vote, election by universal suffrage would be unthinkable. This, however, need not mean that the people of the country, the responsible people of the country who are considered worthy enough to sit in this House, should not be given a larger share in shouldering the responsibilities of running this country now.
Few countries suffered so much in the war as did North Borneo, and the loss of responsible manhood has not yet been repaired. We have the problem of two racial societies, widely different in background, culture, and standards. Their ability to live together so amicably is a matter almost for wonder. I make no forecast of what will evolve here in North Borneo, but I am quite sure that the chances of success will be related directly to the store of experience of the administration of public affairs we managed to build up meanwhile. And I do most solemnly advise that nothing in the nature of the electoral process should be introduced until our native peoples are strong enough to play their full part. The maturity, the responsibility, and the careful deliberation of the discussions in the recent Conference of Native Chiefs are all most heartening and a valuable pointer for the future. But the time for experiments is not yet. Therefore, I beg of you to believe that when I say this, there is nothing in me of the reactionary, but only a deep concern for a country that has engaged my unalloyed affection, and in the future of which I have great faith. I feel now the groundwork has been properly laid. Had the trouble been taken to tell the people of the Borneo territories of the implications of the Tengku's proposals, had there been visits by officials from Malaya to explain to the people what the Tengku really had in mind, then for Malaya to clear all our doubts and fears, an announcement by the Tengku after such groundwork has been laid would have been given a different reception. Kadazan is the name of the largest indigenous group in North Borneo, and that I myself come from British and Kadazan stock. Kadazans number about 1/3 of the population of North Borneo. The idea that human beings were equal whatever the color of their skins began to spread, and with the fight for independence going all round us, it was impossible for the people not to know of it. And that only under British colonial rule that people were slowly made to feel more like human beings. If North Borneo joins Malaya now as a state, it would in fact mean that North Borneo would not be a state, but a colony of the Federation of Malaya. These fears are genuine. Not actually fear or suspicion of the sincerity of Malaya to take us on as an equal partner, but more the fear that by virtue of our status as a British colony, we would automatically become a second-class state, or a colony of Malaya. The merger of the Borneo territories would mean a big enough and strong enough unit to team up with Malaya and Singapore as equals, and that the idea of Malaysia, although we did not contemplate such a name, was there all the time. The common ties shared by North Borneo and Malaya were responsible for the hope at the back of our minds that one day when we too have attained self-government, when we can speak for ourselves and do not have to have the British Colonial Office to speak on our behalf, then it would be time for us to talk with Malaya about a federation of a confederation of our countries. It is for this reason that there was strong opposition to the Tunku's announcement that we should join Malaya as a state. The people were not consulted. Britain was in effect asked to hand over our country to Malaya to make it Greater Malaya and not Malaysia. What form or shape should Malaysia take? First, we, the Borneo territories, could team up with Malaya as individual states, but this has been rejected by the majority of the people of the Borneo territories. Secondly, we could first federate the Borneo territories, which would then confederate with Malaya and Singapore on the basis of equal partnership, a sort of trinity. Another way is for Singapore and Malaya to settle their differences and merge. Singapore, after all, is in fact a part of Malaya. Then there will be two partners, Malaya and the federated Borneo states. There are possibly other forms which Malaysia could take. I cannot say that I myself have made up my mind. I am quite sure in my mind that the Borneo territories would not want to become a partner in Malaysia until they have at least obtained self-government.
In the past, Mr. Stevens has made it clear that he considered Merdeka, independence, in North Borneo as a relatively distant objective, and regards himself as the leader of the Dusun community, which forms the largest single indigenous group of 145,000 of the total population of 454,000 people. Stevens himself is thoroughly Europeanized and seems to have hoped in the past for gradual self-government coming to North Borneo with British encouragement. As a result of the sense of urgency created by the Tengku's Malaysia plan, Stevens, like Azahari of Brunei, apparently saw in federation of these three Borneo states a possible alternative to Malayanization of North Borneo. There are indications Stevens has modified his attitude since his first rejection of the Tengku's proposal by the change in tone, though not necessarily in position. During a private conversation with an Australian diplomat in Jesselton, immediately after the formation of the UNCO political party in mid-1961, Chairman of UNCO, Mr. Donald Stevens, stated that all things considered, joining Malaya was the only sensible course for the Borneo territories to take, and the sooner change was complete, the better for all concerned. Stevens further added that he was sure that North Borneo's special interests could be adequately safeguarded. Stevens professed some sympathy for political parties which favoured independence, but that such an attitude was unrealistic in the present world situation, and blamed the North Borneo colonial government for the state of political immaturity at the time, suggesting he had been advocating for the introduction local leaders and greater involvement of the native community in politics, and for greater development of education opportunities for natives since 1956.
We have seen in the past months a concerted effort to stop Malaysia. Two of our neighbours have taken it upon themselves to prevent Malaysia being realised. Our neighbours should know that we, the people of Sabah, have made our minds up once and for all that nothing will stop us in our determination to see Malaysia established. None helped us to make up our minds. We, of our own free will and desire, have decided for ourselves. All the people of Sabah are in fact solidly for Malaysia. That surely was better than any referendum. That was surely self-determination, our determination to join Malaysia.
We of Sabah spoke in one voice. There are those in the outside world who know next to nothing about us. These people should have been at the IGC meetings because they would have found a Sabah team fighting for what they believe to be Sabah's rights and being quite fearless. that we have chosen to join Malaysia not because of coercion, not because we are colonial stooges, but because after long and deliberation and our own free will, we have come to the undeniable conclusion that in Malaysia lies our hope for gaining early independence, and it is Malaysia who will ensure for our country a happy, strong, prosperous and stable future. Let us proclaim to the world with one voice that the peoples of Sabah welcome the establishment of Malaysia by 31st August this year. We are united and determined that nothing will stop us realizing our desire to see Malaysia so established.
The last British governor of Sabah, Sir William Good, suggested to me that the people of Sabah did have a choice whether or not to join the new federation. He said the people of Sabah were given a chance to make their intentions clear on the matter, first through the Cobbled Commission and later through the United Nations survey team. This view is the personal view of Sir William Good, and not necessarily that of the British government in London. From my impressions, Whitehall was in favour of a quick pullout from Sabah and eager for the country to join the new federation, but the white colonial administrators themselves in Sabah were more inclined for the British to stay longer, as they were more sympathetic to the needs and aspirations of Sabah's leader and people. They thought that the people of Sabah wanted and deserved independence on their own. Tun Fuad Stevens was the major determining factor in the success of the proposed federation as he became the main spokesman for the Sabahans. The Malayan leaders realized it was Stevens who could make the difference at the conference table, for without his concurrence and agreement, the negotiations on the Malaysian plan would fail. The British officials saw that Stevens was the main force behind the whole Malaysian plan for Sabah. The colonial administrators during the Intergovernmental Committee meetings saw that Tun Fuad Stevens, Sabah's main spokesman at the meetings, was given every possible assistance by the British staff of the Sabah State Secretariat. In his negotiations with the Malayan officials, he was given material on advantages and disadvantages of Sabah joining Malaysia, including financial papers where it was shown that Sabah would not gain any real economic or financial advantages from joining Malaysia. He, Tun Fuad Stevens, saw himself as the rightful leader of Sabah. The man would succeed the British to govern Sabah as its Prime Minister. On the 21st of July, 1961, he attended the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association conference held in Singapore and was the only delegate from the Borneo territories. Lee Kuan Yew was very persuasive, and immediately after the CPA conference, the Tunku invited Stevens to Kuala Lumpur for talks and was welcomed like a hero in Kuala Lumpur and treated as a very important leader. In the immediate aftermath of Tun Fuad, Stevens' meetings with Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore and Tengku Abdul Rahman in Kuala Lumpur, he declared, "There is no intention on the part of Malaya for any form of colonization of the Borneo territories." He was indeed happy he was now consulted on the Malaysian plan proposal. Tun Stevens had indicated during the months of May to July 1961 that he wanted Sabah to be independent first before joining Malaya in a new federation. He changed this stand soon after the CPA meeting in Singapore, and the real reason for this change of attitude was shown in the UNKO party's memorandum to the Cobbled Commission.
UNKO Memorandum to the Cobbled Commission, dated 23rd of February 1962. Malaysia will mean more security socially for the natives. Many now talk of the pace of development and the money that is being poured into development of this country. This development, which is being done with such vigour in the Federation of Malaya, would help the natives to find a new spirit to work for themselves and their country. If North Borneo gets self-government and independence, the heirs when the British leave will be the Chinese. It is only Malaysia which will guarantee that they, the indigenous people, have a chance of catching up with their so much more advanced Chinese. It is Malaysia and the special privileges which will be extended to the native peoples that will ensure that at some future time our children will at least be able to reach a stage more part with their, at present, more advanced Chinese.
To summarize, in the end, the decision to participate in the formation of Malaysia, was it down to a lack of diplomatic and political experience? Or was it just because the other side was just far better and far more experienced playing this political game in the formation of Malaysia? Or was it because a small group of individual politicians were intent on fulfilling personal agendas to ensure that they not only remained in power, but also ruled Sabah? Whatever it is in the end, what is clear is that one man makes decisions on behalf of everyone in Sabah, including the community leaders and political parties, without real consultation or debate even in the legislative. Now, although he is supported by Tun Mustafa Datuk Harun, who had already made up his mind very early on to throw support behind the Tengku and this idea of forming Malaysia, it's ultimately one man that is making decisions on behalf of everybody, without real consultation, without real debate. It would seem that one man is responsible for everything that goes right and goes wrong. But is it really fair to blame that one person for all the difficulties that Sabah has faced since 1967? Was he influenced heavily by Singapore and Malayan leaders? Because ultimately, he changed his mind without consulting anybody, and then went out to convince all the other political leaders and all the other community leaders that it was in their best interest for them to agree to merger. This sudden change in directions by this one political leader, from no to a merger to suddenly yes to a merger in such a short period of time, is followed up by a change in policy within UNCO, political party that is meant to represent a certain demographic of the indigenous peoples of Sabah. What is shocking is the memorandum to the Cobble Commission dated 23rd February 1962. But this could not have been done without the knowledge and approval of Tun Fuad Stevens. But what's alarming about this memorandum is that it sets a dangerous path politically going forward, because it's basically saying the Chinese are the people that will rule over us if the British leave. There's no facts to suggest that this would have happened. But ultimately, this is one of the reasons UNCO argues that Malaysia must be formed and that they must lead the country. Now, this memorandum comes back to bite UNCO in the ass in 1967, because when Tun Fuad Stevens needs the Chinese political parties to support him, and he needs the Chinese community for the most part to support UPCO, they don't. And in the end, a lot of them are actually swayed by USNO and Syed Kachik. And so that leads ultimately to the fall and eventual collapse of UPCO. In the end, you must reflect on many aspects of history, I think, and all the different individuals and political parties who all played a part, small or big, in the destiny and the future of Sabah, who maybe at the time saw the benefits of merger for a greater good for Sabah. But in the end, only you can make that decision, who you think is responsible for the mess that has transpired since 1967, after studying the evidence presented in this video, reaching your own conclusion.